Hello and welcome to another edition of the Stench of Truth. Today I want to talk about the news that is not in the news, the secret news, the hidden news, the occult news. What has happened to the crisis along the Mexican border? Haven't heard a peep about this. Haven't heard anything at all. Any viewers down there in Texas care to elaborate on what's going on at the border? It wasn't so long ago that there was a tremendous amount of media coverage talking about drug gangs and fucking murder, violence, kidnappings, and all dread manner of fucking catastrophes down along the Mexican border. But now we hear absolutely nothing about it. What's going on in Mexico? What's going on along the Mexican border? And speaking of Mexico, we don't hear anything about the North American Union, the NAFTA superhighway, or the controversy surrounding the bringing into this country of Mexican trucks, which were so fucking shoddy that they probably would have killed thousands of people just in the first short period of time that they would have been here. And yet, there is no news about this. What about the Security and Prosperity Partnership, the SPP, which is the forerunner for the North American Union? How come we don't hear any more about joint efforts between Canada, the United States, and Mexico? How come that's not in the news anymore? How come the surveillance society is not in the news? It seemed that for a long time there was a great emphasis from civil rights groups and others in this country that forced the mainstream media to focus its attention on the surveillance society that we live in today. Big Brother, 1984, watching every fucking move you make. It seems that very little is said about this anymore. Why is that? Why is it not in the media anymore? Why is there very little news about this? And how come we never hear anything anymore about the threat of terrorist attacks in this country? I'm not talking about domestic terrorism that they try to paint as going on small scale with people like James von Brunn and others who are supposedly right-wing extremists. I'm talking about the kind of terrorism that they warned us about so vehemently whenever they went to war in Afghanistan and Iraq, and that which they claim was perpetrated upon us on September 11th, 2001. How come we don't hear anything about that in the news anymore? It used to be something that was in the news all the time, and now it's nowhere to be found. Well, it is my considered opinion that the reason these things are not in the news is because there are things going on with them behind the scenes. So if you don't hear about the SPP, the Security and Prosperity Partnership Agreement, it's because it's being quietly enacted, with new proposals, laws, and statutes being put into place very quietly because they got such a groundswell of negative publicity when this first hit the airwaves. If you don't hear about any crisis going on along the Mexican border, then you can be assured that the same fucking shit is still happening down there. But it's not in the minds of the powers that be to bring that to our attention anymore. It served a purpose for a time, but now it's going to the back burner. I guarantee you there are still roving gangs, still deadly murders, still kidnappings, still the same fucking drug cartels and the same corrupt Mexican officials still going on down there, but it's not in the news. You're not going to hear anything about Mexican trucks coming into this country because they're probably already coming into this country, just very much more quietly now. You're not going to hear about the NAFTA superhighway anymore because there was such a big stink about it whenever it was in the news that now everything that they do with it is going to be very quiet and hush-hush. And you don't hear about terrorism in this country from supposed Islamic terrorist bombers and suicide bombers and whatever else you want to call them that are the supposed people behind the terrorist attacks on 9/11, because there may be in the works right now a new false flag terror operation for this country. Take it out of the news so it'll be a big fat surprise when it does happen, if it's going to happen. Watch out for what's not in the news. Watch out for what is not being said. Sometimes it's more important than what is being said. Thank you. Good night.